Yo, what's going on, guys? You got Glop, and we are back for week 2 of the Me Draft League. I want to start by saying thank you to everybody for all your support in the last video. It's greatly appreciated. Very much looking forward to putting out these videos and providing you guys with the highest level Draft League Clover content. So, let's break down our week 2 matchup here. We are going up against fellow coach Sal. Now, she's been a member in the server for quite some time. I've seen her compete in other Clover-esque and also Cope, Cab, if you know what any of that stuff is. Some people will, you might not. So she's definitely been around and competed in some of these, quirky draft leagues. So don't want to underestimate her going into this game. Now her team is quite interesting. It's very offensive. We've got these 2 Pokemon here, Warudio and Huntaber at high speeds here and a little bit of a speed gap. So something that we'll want to try to take advantage of. That being said, a lot of these Pokemon here underneath, like the Mirrorstein, the Nomaestro, definitely valid candidates for Choice Scarf. So her team is pretty quick, and she's got a lot of flexible offensive pieces. Her defense mostly comprised of the Spook Scare and the Fonduple, so we just want to be mindful of those guys when we're making our prep. But looking into the matchup here, the 2 biggest threats I saw, of course, were going to be Nomaestro. Pixelate Boom Burst is quite devastating into most teams, so you really want to make sure you have a secure answer versus that. And then also the Warudio, right, with Regenerator, going to be quite annoying for us to handle. Can knock off our team, get some momentum with U-turn, position some of her offensive threats. So as always, guys, if you aren't interested in the team builder process, down in the description you're going to see a timestamp for the battle. But for those of you who are, let's go ahead and jump right into it. On your screen, I'm going to pull up a image of the matchup so you can see what we're talking about as we go through each of the mons. So first member we've gone here with is the Ava Cycle, and I've decided to go with a specially defensive set, seeing as how we want to have a secure answer into the Nomaestro. If you look at the rest of our team, pretty susceptible to Boom Bursts in general. Our only resist on the team are the Kuklan, which is more of an offensive threat, Colossus, which we could bring, but I've elected the bench, and then of course our Ava Cycle. So went ahead with max special defense here, and I'm going with enough speed to speed creep max speed modest on the Nomaestro. That way, if it is a spec set, I'll be able to come in, outspeed it, go for a Moonlight, and then go from there. So our moveset's going to be Knockoff and Heavy Slam. Knockoff's just a great tool to get rid of items on Cell's team, maybe open up opportunities for some of our later members, as we'll break that down. And Heavy Slam is just really good consistent damage into a lot of her members, right? Does good damage into Warudio, obviously going to be super effective on the Nomaestro and onto the Fonduple and Huntaber. So Heavy Slam hits a lot of the team for pretty meaningful damage all around. Our last moves here, of course, going to be the Moonlight, and Teleport is going to be for momentum so that we can position some of our attackers and start putting on offensive pressure. Running with Flame Body here, seeing as how Strongjaw has no use, and obviously Runaway doesn't do anything. Does prevent trapping, but I don't believe there's any mean look shenanigans on her team, so not really something I even remotely considered when building. Next member we've got here is the Spookzilla, and this is going to be our main offensive powerhouse in this matchup. So as you might or may not be able to tell, she's only got the 1 dark type, which is the Warudio, which does not appreciate Shadow Bone. I believe no bulk takes about 37 minimum with Spell Tag. So we're going to be offsetting the damage done by Regenerator, provided we're able to get outside sources of pressure in the form of spikes, which we'll get to in a moment here. Spook Out, just going to be consistent damage, force that flinch, and of course Shadow Sneak is great priority. It's good to basically pick off any setup threat, right? So it can pick off like Mary Pyro if it goes for Quiver Dances. We can use the Spook Out into Shadow Sneak combo, able to pick it off if it's taking a little bit of chip damage. Also great at stalling turns of potential Inverse Room if she elects to bring Mirrorstein. For those who don't know, it's got an ability that sets Inverse Room upon switch-in, which basically makes the battle into an inverse battle. So kind of a mindfuck, but should be able to handle it. We'll be able to see that on Team Preview. And then, of course, our last move here is Taunt. Just thought that would be useful into Pokemon like Fonduple to prevent moves like Synthesis or Sleep Powder. And it can also stunt Recovery from Ignite. So all around, just a really effective piece here. Now, Bone Zone, of course, is going to allow us to actually hit the Huntaber with Shadow Bone, seeing as how it ignores immunities. So really all we need is Ghost moves, so that's why I've gone with the Spell Tag here. EVs, we're just going to be outspeeding max speed Mary Pyro, max attack, rest put into our bulk. Pretty straightforward guy. Next member we've got here is the Dream Meme, and this is going to be our dedicated response to her Warudio. Fortunately for us, the best it has to hit us, I believe, is like Life Orb Ice Punch or like a Choice Band Ice Punch. It doesn't get Sword Stance, it does get Bulk Up, But realistically, if, she starts setting up with that thing, we can just go for a Dragon Tail, send it flying. We've also got Spikes and Teleport here. Spike's going to just, generally chip at most of her team, put it in range of attacks for for Spookzilla, or for our Ku Clan, and then Teleport just lets us position those offensive pieces. What's really nice about this Pokemon, and this is an interaction that we might see in the battle, is that with Trace, we actually copy Rurudio's Regenerator, meaning that once we go for that Teleport, not only do we get momentum, but we're also actively healing up our Dream Beam. So I thought that would be the most useful ability to have going into the matchup. Obviously, things like status can stick, but I do anticipate this to be a more fast-paced match. So I really want to prioritize setting up a layer, and then ideally just getting off the field so that we can position one of our attackers. We've got Soft Boiled, keep ourselves healthy, and then Dragon Tail is just there for setup threats. Namely things like Uwato, if it goes for a shift here. Could also be helpful into Mary Pyro if it goes for quiver dances, things like that. So all around, pretty straightforward Pokemon, just a nice physical defense tank. Should help anchor us defensively. Next member I've got here is the Ku Clan, and looking at her team, her 2 fire resists are weak to ground, so I figured that all we'd really need is fire and ground coverage. So we're rocking a Sub-Calm mindset here with Slackberry. And the idea behind this is that if we're able to substitute down on some of her slower defensive pieces, once we proc that Slackberry, it could put us in a nice position to potentially go for a sweep. She doesn't have the greatest priority. It really just boils down to, I believe, Huntaber's Cell Rock, maybe some stray quick attacks, but not a lot of other things jump out to me immediately, so I figured that this could be a pretty effective set. Substitute just there to basically shield us from status moves from things like Fonduple or Ignite and Calm Mind. I figured it would be nice alongside Substitute. Could have maybe elected for Nasty Plot, but I actually liked the survivability aspect that Calm Mind would give us. So if she tries to revenge us with maybe a specially offensive piece, we might be able to withstand the hit as a result. Could potentially knock us into range of our Slackberry. So EVs here, we're just creeping max speed Mary Pyro, everything else dumped into special attack, and the rest is put into our bulk. And we're being mindful of the fact that with these berries that activate at a quarter, you actually want to make sure that your HP is a even number, or divisible by 4, more importantly. If you don't do that, then there's a chance if you come in on rocks, you'll be at like 25.1%, and your berry won't activate, so I didn't want to have that issue come up. Next member we got here is the Substar, and looking at her squad, she's got a grand total of 1 water resist, that being the Fonduple. So I knew that offensively, this thing could put in a lot of work for us. It's got strong enough power, thanks to Water Bubble, and with Choice Scarf, obviously we're going to be outpacing a lot of those fast, frail offensive pieces. A lot of them are either weak to or take neutral damage from Surf, which is great for us. So we've got Surf, and we've got Hydro Pump in case we need a stronger damage alternate option. Volt Switch is pretty straightforward in a Pokemon like this, able to capitalize on a switch and potentially catch Fonduple upon switch in to generate momentum for our team. And then I figured last move could just be something like Heal Bell. Probably not very likely that we're going to click it, but as I mentioned with the Dream Beam, if she likes to take a more slow-paced approach, try to whittle us down with status, I would be vulnerable to that. So Heal Bell does give us sort of an out to that and allow us to play more of a long game should it come to that. Final member here is going to be the Reagan, and the main purpose of this piece here is to cover specifically for the Uwato. I recognize that a shift gear set could be really devastating into us, so I'm equipping the Choppleberry here. Uwato's best coverage move to hit Reagan is Superpower, so I figured Choppleberry would give us the best odds in 1v1ing that Pokemon. We've got Foul Play here to basically punish if she goes for the shift here. We've got U-turn just to get positioning, and of course Stealth Rock is nice to make sure that we're chipping away at things. No Magic Bounce users, so once those rocks go up, they have to be removed through Mop or Rapid Spin, and we can play around that, of course. And then I put Toxic as the last move, seeing as how I really didn't need Ground Stab. I did feel like landing a Toxic onto something like Spook Scare or onto potential Fonduple could be really valuable for us. Put those Pokemon on a timer, make it easier for our offensive pieces to break through. So that's going to be it for the Team Builder, guys. I will see you in the battle. Alright guys, and we are back for the battle. So looking at team preview here, I've noticed that Cell has elected to bench both the Maripyro and the Mirror Stein. That's good news for us. We're not going to have to worry about inverse room shenanigans unless it's set up manually. Looking at this lineup here, seems like it's going to be a pretty offensive, straightforward approach. I recognize that Substar looks very strong into the majority of her team, so I'm going to go ahead and lead off with that, as she elects to lead off with no Maestro. And turn 1 here, I want to respect the potential of Choice Scarf in this thing. If it's timid, could be faster than me and get off a large Boom Burst, which I think would be not so great for us. So I'm going to pull a switch into Ava Cycle. as she does reveal to be Scarf, and she tricks us that Scarf turn 1. Kind of unfortunate because it means that this Pokemon's utility is really down the drain at this point. I like to just go for a knockoff to remove an item, get some progress, as she makes a great switch into Uwado and procs a weakness policy immediately, which definitely scared me immediately. I recognized that I kind of had to pull a hard switch into Re again to cover for a potential setup option, which she elects to go for, that being the shift gear. But of course, we are packing the foul play, and we do have that Chople Berry, so we would live a superpower. Thankfully, though, she just goes for Meteor Mash, and we're able to get the KO with the foul play. Next turn here, she's going to go into a Rudio, and as we talked about in the team builder, really free switch into Dream Beam. We're going to trace that Regenerator, which means that we're going to be able to offset any damage that comes our way. And she just goes for a U-turn and makes a switch here into, I believe, Huntaber. I was looking at some calcs here, recognized that really this Pokemon can't threaten a one-shot on me, so my best option here is just to go ahead and get up a Spike, and if she goes for any kind of a setup move, we can go for a Dragon Tail in the subsequent turn. So she's going to go right for the Hone Claws as I put a layer of spikes in the field, and then of course this next turn, just going to go for that Dragon Tail, get rid of the Huntaber. And the nice thing here is that we still have the Regenerator, so as we switch out, we're actually going to be back up to about 80%, which is quite nice for us. She's going to make a U-turn play with no Maestro, get an opportunity for a Spook Scare to come in, and I figured this would just be maybe like a Stealth Rock or a Spike usage from this thing, as it reveals Shell Smash, which, going into this battle, I didn't even know this Pokemon got this. It was kind of funny. I remember playing this live. I switched and I skipped turn, and I was like, wait a minute, where did all these green boosts come from? I don't remember seeing that. So she's going to go for a Shadow Ball here, going to do significant damage, but conveniently puts us in range of our Shellac Berry, which, funnily enough, because this thing is so slow, actually means that we're going to outspeed it in the next turn. So our tech hits beautifully there. She's going to pull switch now into Huntaber, as it's pretty telegraphed that a Cellrock's going to come out, so I'm going to pull a switch to Re again. And this is a really nice position for me to just go for the U-turn here. And now we can bring out Substar for free, threaten this thing with a Surf, get a KO. I believe her response in the next turn here is going to be the Fonduple. So I'm just going to pull a switch out into my Avicycle, seeing as how, if anything's going to be slept, I don't want it to be this thing, as she ends up going for a Toxic. This can allow me to just throw off a Heavy Slam, do significant damage to the Fonduple, as she goes for a Strength Sap, which, another move I wasn't even wary about in this Pokemon's moveset. Just going to go for another Heavy Slam here. I want to condition her into going for another Strength Sap to potentially get a free switch. And it's here that I recognize Regen isn't really useful, so I may as well just put it on the field and threaten a Toxic. None of the Pokemon on her team are immune to it. She's going to go for a Strength Sap there, which I think is a misplay. I think if you have, like, a Grass move, or maybe just Switch, might have been a better option. But either way, going to allow us to go for U-turn in this next turn here. We're able to go out into Avicycle and just threaten the Heavy Slam. At this point, no Pokemon resist it, and it does pretty meaningful damage to everything. She's going to go for a Thunder Wave, and then in the following turn, I believe she pulls a switch back into the Fonduple after the U-turn. Yep. As unfortunately, we do get full paralyzed, but not really going to be the end of the world. This next turn here, I believe I just pull a switch into the Re again, knowing that I don't really need it for anything, and she makes a nice switch into Rudio. But obviously, we always have a free entry point for our Dream Beam, so we're going to make that hard switch right now. She ends up going for a knockoff this turn, and this allows us to go for a Teleport and put our Substar back onto the field. So we're going to go for a Teleport now, as I believe she brings out, yep, no Maestro. And I recognize that I could go Substar, or what's more forcing is actually going to be the Spookzilla, because at this point, we know that we're faster because of our investment, and she doesn't have a Scarf, and Shadow Bone will offset the damage that Rudio would heal from Regenerator. So really no reason not to just go for that Shadow Bone. Able to secure a KO here. She's going to go back out into a Rudio, but again, we just have our Dream Beam as a forever switch. She ends up going for a knockoff here, and I believe I just go for a Teleport this next turn. She goes for a CC, doesn't really do a lot of damage. Kind of screams that she doesn't have coverage for the Dream Beam. So we're going to bring out Substar here, and I'm just going to go for a Surf, no reason to predict, seeing as how Fonduple is on a timer with Toxic. And we're pretty much locked to secure a 6-0 here. I just switch out into Avicycle because it's really a no-lose play. Now, I could be, you know, lame and feed the kill to Avicycle, but I think, you know what? We need to assert our dominance. We need to put Cell into the Bone Zone with our Spookzilla. So we're going to send him out here, go for the Spook Out. Going to put it in range of the Shadow Bone in the subsequent turn, and that will be a disgusting 6-0 in our favor. So very dominant showing here for our Week 2 match. Hope you guys have enjoyed the coverage. Week 3 will be coming out soon, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.